when you stumble on a poster like this one, you kind of gotta check out the film. So I think I watched High Times, I believe on YouTube, and this dominates right here. Bing's a campus queen, honest. The plot of this one is relatively simple. Bing Crosby is a retired widow restaurateur who decides, much to the annoyance of his children, that he's going to do what he's always wanted to do: go to college. It is high time he went to college. So, this is just a collection of unintentional hilarity that doesn't necessarily live up to 2020 now 5 expectations. There's a lot there's a lot of interesting stuff kind of at play here. I mean, there's the old school Bing Crosby. You can see some of it, here Fabian's in here, Tuesday Weld. Actually, before I get too sidetracked, let me go ahead and pull up the cast. As you can see here, this cast is kind of a smorgasbord of who's from 1958 through about 1976. I've already talked Fabian and Tuesday Weld up at the top. Then we have Richard Beamer right around the time he did West Side Story. Yvonne Craig, most known to most as Batgirl. And then you've got Gavin Captain Stubing McLeod. Looking behind the camera, this comes from a pre-most things Blake Edwards. This is definitely before almost everything that you would remember from him. The Pink Panther films. Great Race is a particular favorite of mine. This came right after a very good film, Operation Petticoat, one that I always enjoy. And then prior to this, he was working on television things like Peter Gunn. But this film feels like one from a young director. And as I watched High Time, which does not have a particularly memorable plot, it's very much fragments of Crosby's character during his 4 years in college, his pledging of fraternity. There's a slightly cringeworthy in 2025 Southern Cotillion. I was left with a sense of wanting to be a fly on the wall during the shooting of this. Crosby has his classic Hollywood reputation. He's got the white Christmas of it all with him. And then the very stern, nature of Bing Crosby as a man at play with Fabian and Richard Beamer and Yvonne Craig. Cross of the decades that happened on this set. I just want to know what shooting this film was like. And ultimately, that was probably the most memorable aspect of it, was this almost macabre fascination of what was shooting this film like. Because the plot just does not stick with you. The comedy moments aren't particularly that great. As you can tell in the poster, there's a fairly large set piece where Crosby dresses in drag for the Civil War themed fraternity ball that they have. He's in, a Gone with the Wind style dress. And this moment is so memorable in the scope of the film that they call it out on the poster. That it was probably in the trailers as well. I have not seen those, but I'd be willing to bet that was there. Ultimately, that's what you've got there. The main arc of the film is just how Crosby's children do not want him to go to college, which seems like a fairly manufactured arc. It's difficult to speak to that from a 1960s perspective. It's very, oh my God, Dad, what are you going to do? And it leads towards a lot of uncomfortable and likely dated family comedy. It did not impress me really in the grand scheme of things, but always worth a check, especially if you're into this cast. It might lead to some enjoyment. There's some interesting vibes at play. I was watching Yvonne Craig and Bing Crosby like a car crash for a little bit, and poor Fabian having to sing right after Bing Crosby. This was a weird one. This was just so weird. But I will go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you so much for joining me here at Piercing Cinema. Check out my previous video. I've left some of my links to my other social media sites when the inevitable happens, if the inevitable happens. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Take it easy.